This is going to be a general recovery class if you've had breast cancer reconstruction or breast cancer surgery. So the exercises are designed by the Pink Ribbon program, and we're going to be using a TheraBand for some of this work. The TheraBand is going to give you a little bit of resistance. So make sure that you have come to a place in your recovery where you've done the videos prior to this one and you've regained some range of movement and you feel like you're not pulling on the incision site in a way that might compromise it. We don't want to compromise that incision. We want to feel a stretch and we want to start to strengthen, but we also don't want to pull on it in a way that's going to be adverse to your recovery. So as always, please make sure that you check in with your recovery team, your doctor, your physiotherapist, to make sure that you are ready for a fitness program. We're going to be moving slowly, we're going to be stretching, but we are going to be adding a little bit of resistance. I will say again that this is a general breast cancer recovery video. If you are looking for a more specific video on tram flap recovery, there is a video in this package on that specifically. This one is going to focus primarily on stretching the tissue and beginning to strengthen the tissues under the affected arm. We are going to look at a little bit of core work, a little bit of glute work, but it's mostly going to be upper body. We're going to get started by just doing some mobilization work through the shoulders. So some nice, easy shoulder rolls here. Now you can do this portion sitting on a chair if sitting on the floor is not comfortable for you. You can also place a pillow between your bum and your heels so it'll lift you up a little bit and take a little bit of pressure off of your knees. So just nice, easy shoulder rolls here. Gently moving through the areas that might feel a little stickier. And then we're going to reverse that. So again, just nice and easy movement. Breathing easy here. It's with work like this where it's a good opportunity to reconnect that pelvic floor breath. So breathing in, feeling the foundation of your house widening, and exhaling, feeling like you're pulling in and up through that foundation and up into the walls of the house. One more time. Pulling it all in. We're going to do just a little elevation and depression of the shoulder blades. So again, just gently manipulating the tissue. We don't want to do anything that's going to stress that tissue too much, but we do want to say it's okay to move again. Again, just that nice, easy pelvic floor breathing. Couple more like this, just nice, easy shoulder shrugs, drawing those shoulder blades up and allowing them to come down. One last time. All right, we're going to start to add a little bit of body load to this movement. If you've been doing the classes prior to this, none of this part will look particularly new at the moment. So I've just placed my hand onto my shoulder, brought my elbow up, and I'm just going to open and close the arm like a little flag in the wind. And you can do both arms here if both arms are affected or not affected. It's just nice to work both at the same time. So again, taking your time with it. Sometimes it's easy to want to rush through. I can feel that myself. I want to rush through the movement. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to do that again. So the arm is going to come up, opening and closing. And I want to think of the easiness through the shoulder blades here. Again, just gently allowing for the arm to open. I'm not forcing my arm back. I'm not jamming back past my shoulder blade or past my shoulder joint. I'm trying to work within that shoulder joint. I'm going to bring the arm down, elbow leads, and release. We're going to do that one more time, but we're going to go into just little gentle circles. So bringing my hands to my shoulders, bringing the elbows up, and I'm going to start doing some gentle circles. So again, at this point, we're still just manipulating the tissue. We're getting the tissue to trust movement again. We don't want to pull on that incision site. And then reversing. Maybe getting a little bit more range in those circles. And down. And then finally, if you feel you have the range of movement, you can bring the elbows just past 90 and then extend from the elbow from there. So I'm still in front of my head. I haven't come all the way up. Bringing my hands back to my shoulders, allowing the elbows to drop and release. So I'm just slowly gaining a little bit more range of movement as I reach out and down. And I'm going to continue with that. And if that feels good, and I don't feel like I'm getting any adverse pulling, then maybe I can go a little higher in my range. And the higher you go, the more of a stretch through all of that tissue you will feel. Breathing through it. And let's do one more here. And down. So hopefully even just that little bit of work, that series, is starting to warm up the muscles a little bit. We're starting to remind those muscles how we want them to work. We're just going to move into some scapula glides here. So I'm going to bring my arms out in front of me, but they're still fairly low and wide. Reaching my fingers forward, I'm going to let my shoulder blades slide around the spine. And then I'm going to slide my shoulder blades together like they're little elevator doors closing. And then I'm going to reach forward with my fingers like I'm trying to reach around a tree. And then slide those shoulder blades toward each other like they're elevator doors closing. And again, reaching around the tree and close those elevator doors. So it's a small movement, and if it feels like it's too much to have both arms up, you can always do one arm at a time. And I would suggest doing the unaffected arm first, just so the body remembers what that movement looks like. And I'll turn around so that you can see that movement. So as I draw the arms forward, you can see the shoulder blades are going to slide apart. And as I slide those shoulder blades back together, there's those elevator doors closing. So I don't want the elevator to go up to the first floor, and I also don't want the elevator to go down to the basement. I'm really thinking of that horizontal movement of the shoulder blade wrapping around the rib cage. And you can do one arm at a time if it feels like it's too much. We've done a lot of these now. And we'll bring the arm down to rest. All right. We're going to do a little bit of rotation now. So I'm just going to place my hands onto my sternum. Starting with my head, I'm going to look over my right shoulder. And then it's like I want to look behind me. So the shoulder begins to open, the collarbone begins to wrap around the ribs, and the ribs begin to rotate around the spine. My pelvis stays stable. And then I come back to center. And other side. It's like someone's behind me, and I just want to say, what? Hello? And then back to center. So my goal here is not to side bend into the movement or side bend away. I want to think of spiraling up. So think of space in the vertebrae, like little balloons between each vertebrae. You just get a little bit taller. You float a little bit higher up through that spine. We're going to do one more time on each side. Gentle rotation through the tissue. And gentle rotation through the tissue. And then we'll do a little side bending. So to begin, I'm going to place my hand on my chest, just the one. I'm going to imagine that it's a dial. Letting my ear fall toward the shoulder, I'm going to start to rotate that dial and allow for my rib cage to begin to open. So I get to feel a little bit of stretch through the tissue there, and then I'm going to dial myself back. Let's do that again. The ear begins to fall toward the shoulder. I start to dial the rib cage. I feel like I'm opening on one side and sliding the ribs one on top of the other. On the other side, I can even lift my elbow for a little bit more of a stretch. It's very gentle. And then back. You can almost think of an accordion. So if you're an accordion kind of bending here, the ear falls to the shoulder and you get this really lovely opening of the accordion while you have that smaller but still space. So you're not collapsing underneath that smaller arc. One more time on this side. Pulling the abdominals in, using that oblique. Let's do the other side. So the ear's falling to the shoulder. I'm going to dial my hand. Think of that accordion opening or the top part of a rainbow, like the red color of a rainbow. You can think under here is the purple and blue of the rainbow. So there's still space. I'm not sinking into my side. And as I come up, I want to think of sliding the rib cage down to the hip. So that way I'm engaging my oblique. Other side. Or again to this side. Sliding that rib down to the hip. One more time. Ear falling to the shoulder, allowing yourself to dial. You can let the elbow lift, which will give you a little bit more of a stretch. And back. All right, we're going to move into an exercise called open elbows. I am going to start to use my TheraBand for this. You can also use an old pair of tights, anything that's going to give you a little bit of resistance. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of hanging the TheraBand onto my thumbs. Then I'm going to close my thumbs into my pointer finger, and I'm going to turn my palms and then flip them over. So now I've got the band across my hands. Holding on, I want my elbows and my wrists to be relatively in the same line here, and my elbows are coming right out from the shoulder joint. I'm just going to start to press out into the band, feeling a little bit of energy between those shoulder blades start to warm up, and then letting that go. And again, it's not a big movement. It's not a big movement, but it's enough to start to feel a little bit of activity under the armpit and between the shoulder blades. Now, if this feels like it's too much right now, drop the TheraBand. You can absolutely do open elbows without the band, and you may get more range of movement. Without the band, you really have the ability to open fully and in. The band is going to give you a little bit of restriction in terms of your range, but as you start to get stronger and you start to build that musculature up, you'll be able to go further and further and further out. But work your way up to that. Let's do two more here, either with or without the band. One more time. And down. So that's quite a lot of work. I can definitely feel all of the tissue around the shoulder blade, on the shoulder, underneath, all really starting to warm up now. Before we hit the floor, we're going to go into a little bit of half rollback work. So this work is going to be more involved for the low abdominals. This is a core exercise. I'm just placing my hands behind my knees and sitting tall on my sit bones, taking a breath in. And on the exhale, I'm going to let my tailbone roll underneath and roll toward my pubic bone as my pubic bone deepens towards my belly button, going into a little half rollback scoop. And then I'm going to roll my wheel back up. So I'm thinking of my pelvis as a wheel. And that wheel is going to roll tailbone to pubic bone to belly button. And then I'm going to roll that wheel back. Belly button, pubic bone, tailbone. And again. So if you've had a tram flap surgery, There is a video for that. You can do this work. I would really support your thinking in that pelvic floor engagement here. So taking the breath in, and on the exhale, really drawing in through the pelvic floor to help find the support in the low abdominals. You also don't have to go very far back to feel that work, and then coming back up. And a little roll. I'm trying not to collapse in my upper body, so I'm not getting rounded. I want to keep my chest really nice and open. And let's do 2 more here. Scooping through those tummy muscles, pelvic floor pulling in and up as I roll through my wheel. Deepening those abdominals as I roll back up. And one more time, scooping through those low tummy muscles. And then deepening as I roll myself back up nice and tall. All right, we're gonna come onto our backs now. So safely lowering yourself down on your side and then coming onto your back. We wanna find a nice neutral pelvis, and we're gonna start with just a nice snow angel here. So I'm turning my palms up toward the ceiling, which is gonna let my shoulder blade open and my shoulder open. And I'm just gonna start to slide my fingers along the mat. I know that the hand gets cut off in the frame, but I'm just sliding my arm to a place where I feel like I'm getting a stretch through the tissue, but I'm not pulling into that tissue in a way that just really doesn't feel good, and then coming back. So having your hand on the ground, as I said in one of the previous videos, that is already a greater range of movement, and if it feels like it's too much, place a pillow or a rolled up towel or something underneath your hand, which will give you a little bit of lift. And then you can work a little bit more in the shoulder joint. So it's a little bit more in line. It's not going to give quite as much of a stretch within like the joint capsule, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just gonna do 2 more here. Now you can do this on the other side. I just end up kind of coming into contact with my table here, so I'm just doing the one arm. You can absolutely do both arms at the same time. Again, I'm not forcing my arm into a place that doesn't feel good. I just want to work in an area where the tissue feels like it's being stretched and it feels like it's a good range of movement. From here, I'm going to grab my TheraBand again. And I'm going to do that same flip. So I have it on my thumbs. I'm going to close the hand and just rotate through my wrists so that the band is wrapped. Letting my shoulder blades really rest into the floor, allowing the humeral heads of my arm to really sink into the floor. I'm going to start to gently press out into the band. And then let that go. Press out into the band. So again, just beginning to gently wake up and add a little bit of load to all of that musculature under the armpit that may have been affected by the surgeries. Now you can do all of this work without the band. Do what feels best for your body. One more time here. From here, I'm going to find a little bit of support into the band, and then I'm going to let the arms start to fall back a little bit. Not much. Again, just within a range where I feel comfortable, where I am feeling a stretch, but it's a positive stretch, not a negative stretch. And then exhale, engaging that pelvic floor, finding those abdominals, and coming back up. And again, letting the arms fall back behind, letting the shoulder blades sink into the floor, let the humeral head sink in the joint, and then back. We'll do 2 more. So everybody's range is going to be different at this point depending on where they are in their recovery. So for some people, they may be able to go back further, which is a larger range of movement and a larger stretch. For others, it might be a smaller range of movement. And that's fine. Work with where you are. And if you continue to do the work safely, then you will regain that range of movement. Let's do one more time here. I'm still just gently pressing into the band. And exhale as I come back up. All right, I'm gonna lower my arms down and unwrap them. I'm just gonna rest my hands by my side. Now looking at the lower body, we're gonna go into some toe taps. So taking a breath in, on my exhale, I'm gonna bring my leg up to tabletop. And I'm just gonna go into some gentle toe taps. So I'm engaging my glute, exhaling as I tap my foot down, inhaling up. Exhale, draw that pelvic floor in and up. And up. So challenging our stability here. If you've taken any tissue from the glute to use as part of your reconstruction, just make sure, again, that you have been cleared for fitness. This is involving a little bit of glute work as I lower my leg down. So just checking in with yourself with how that feels, how that activity feels as that muscle begins to contract and release. From here, we're going to build on it. So I'm going to find that glute again. I'm going to give my bum a squeeze, and I'm going to reach the leg out. Longer lever, more abdominals needed. Bend the leg in. Exhale. Inhale it back. Exhale. Inhale it back. 3 more. And 2. One more time. And then with control, lowering the leg down, really trying to stay nice and stable in my pelvis. And we're going to do the other side. So I'm coming up, going into my little toe tap, finding my glute, and letting it release as I bring the leg up. Pelvic floor pulling in, pelvis staying really nice and supported, ribs are staying really nice and supported. 2 more. One more time. And now we're going to go to our leg reaches. So again, finding that glute, I'm working from my hip joint to extend the leg out, bending the knee, allowing the thigh bone to sink into that joint as I bring it in. Working from the hip joint, using the glute, reaching out. And again. And in. Inhale it back. Trying to keep a pretty easy upper body, pretty easy arms here. So you really have to focus on using those lower abdominals. And one last time. And then lowering the leg down. Okay, we're getting the band involved again. So I'm just going to loop it around my hands, but I'm going to keep my elbows tucked. We're going to go into a double knee drop from here. So as my legs begin to fall away from each other, I'm going to gently press into the band, feeling a little bit of rotator cuff work, and then coming back in. So what's nice about this is because my elbows and my humerus bone are on the mat, I'm kind of pivoting over those.
So I can do my rotator cuff work here, but still feel really supported because I've got the feedback from the mat to support me and help me. And so I can do my pelvic floor breath, allowing the pelvic floor to widen as the legs come apart and in. If you have taken any tissue from your inner thighs as part of your reconstruction, this movement here for the legs is going to feel like a pretty big stretch. So again, work within a range that feels comfortable and make sure that you have spoken with your recovery team prior to starting any fitness. We don't want to do anything that's going to compromise the recovery of any area that has been used in the surgery. One more time here. And in. All right, we're going to go to a single leg version. So as my left leg, which is my leg closest to the camera, begins to open, I'm going to open my right arm. So you can see right away my range becomes much smaller than it was before, and then coming back up. And I'm going to alternate sides. So now my right leg is going to start to open, my right arm stays stable, and the left arm tips over the elbow and back. It's okay if it's a smaller range of movement. Right now we're looking to slowly build oblique support back up. Just one more time on each side. And last one. And release. Okay, the last thing that we're going to take a look at are some hip lifts. You can put the TheraBand aside. I'm bringing my heels a little closer to my bum, my nice neutral pelvis, pulling the abdominals in for support. I'm going to give my bum a squeeze, and then using my glutes, I'm going to come right back up. And then hinging at my hip joint, widening my bum, I want my ribs and my pelvis to come down in one solid piece. Let's do it again. Find the glutes. Start to wake those glutes up and coming down. Let's do a few more here. And down. One more time. Let's come up and stay. If this is enough for you, then you can just stay here. I'm really pressing down through my heels and reaching out through my knees, but now I'm going to start to press more into my toes because I'm going to lift those heels up and do 8 little heel taps. So I really have to use my glutes, my core, my legs to help stabilize and support as I work through that ankle joint. Just a few more here. 3 and 2 and 1. Hinge at the hip, slowly let the bum release, coming all the way back down. And down you go. All right, let's roll onto our side and come on up. We're going to move into a little bit of standing work now. All right, we have come to standing, and we're going to be using the TheraBand for the majority of this part of the series here. So because we are adding load onto the affected areas and we're starting to build that musculature up, make sure that you have talked to your team, you're ready to add load, you're ready to move on to this part of your recovery. We don't want to blow through important building blocks in terms of gaining range of movement and slowly starting to build the strength up. So I'm standing on my TheraBand using both feet. And I'm going to hold down about halfway down my TheraBand because I do want to have some resistance there. We're going to start with those shoulder shrugs again that we did at the beginning of the class, but now we've got load to play with. So you're going to feel the resistance as you shrug up, and then you're going to feel how you need to control the depression of the shoulder blades as the TheraBand draws those shoulder blades down your spine. Don't let the TheraBand win and just drop the shoulder blades. Feel that work. Feel the control through the musculature. Feel how you are slowly beginning to build that muscle, all those muscles back up. We're going to do 2 more here. One more time. We're going to go into the side bends that we looked at earlier as well, but now we have something to play with. So my right ear is going to fall toward my right shoulder. I'm going to let that right TheraBand help take me over while the left TheraBand begins to stretch. Taking a breath in, and on my exhale as I come up, I'm going to let that left TheraBand help to pull those ribs back up and into place. Other side, side bending over. And coming up. Let's do 2 more. Just a nice stretch. One more time. And up. Okay, so now we're going to start to add more load to the upper body and to those arms. I'm holding toward the end of my TheraBands here. I'm going to do both arms at the same time, but you can absolutely do single arm. And if you do single arm, it's a nice challenge for the oblique on the opposite side. So I would encourage you to do that. But for today, we're going to do both arms at the same time. So the first thing I'm going to do is just a little shoulder shrug to just let the shoulders find a nice, easy, neutral place. Taking my breath in, and on my exhale, I'm going to lead with my hands and feel the resistance of the band. This is about as high as I'm going to go, where I can feel my abdominals kicking in for support, and I can feel the work all through here, but I don't feel like I'm really going up into my neck and then coming back down. Let's do that again. Exhaling and down. Now it's really easy here to start to kind of want to rotate those thumbs down to the floor. But I would encourage you to instead think of rotating the pinkies up to the ceiling. That's going to encourage a little bit more external rotation, so we'll start to build up the tissue here a little bit more. When the arm turns in, it activates the pec muscles, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if that tissue through the pec is still feeling sensitive or tight due to the surgery, we don't want to increase that tightness by making it work. We want to try to keep the shoulder blades open. We don't want to encourage a rounding in of the shoulders. We want to try to open that tissue up by energizing that mid-back and opening that chest. Exhaling. Two more. One more time here. And down. Okay, we're gonna go to the side now. You can choose how much you want to challenge yourself. The lower you go down on the band, the harder it's gonna be. The higher you go up, the easier it'll be. I have my arms in my peripheral vision, and again, I want my baby fingers to tip outward toward the ceiling a little bit, just to encourage that external rotation. I don't want to feel like I'm collapsing in my chest. I want to feel like I'm staying really nice and open through that front tissue. Pulling up through that pelvic floor. A few more here. And two. One more time. And down. All right. Moving on, we're going to start to continue to work the back, But we're gonna do our row now. So I'm crossing my TheraBand, and I'm gonna hinge forward a little bit at my hip joint here. From here, pulling the abdominals in, I'm gonna lead with my elbows, allowing the shoulder blades to glide toward each other like those elevator doors are closing. And then the TheraBand is gonna help bring the arms down. So it's a little row. Bending the elbows. This is gonna encourage all that nice activation through the mid-back, which is gonna help keep the tissue in the front nice and open. And again. And let those elbows lead the way. Slide the shoulder blades towards each other so that the ears and the shoulders stay away from each other. We don't want those shoulders climbing too high. Let's do 3 more here. And 2. One more time. Excellent. From here, I'm going to let the cross of the band come just underneath my knees. And I'm going to squat down just a little bit further because I want the resistance. And I'm going to do a little bit of tricep work. So just gently pressing the band against the legs. I'm going to open up that collarbone, slide those shoulder blades together, and then gently press for triceps. 1, 2. So again, making sure that you don't feel like you're pulling on the tissue in an adverse way. It doesn't feel like it's aggravating anything, but instead it feels like it's a stretch and a good start to building up the musculature that's been affected. Let's do 2 more here. 1 more time. And coming up. All right, we're gonna finish with some squats. So I'm gonna put the band away, open my legs a little bit wider here, and just leading with the knees, finding that nice hip hinge. I'm gonna sink my bum back in space, giving the glutes a squeeze and coming back up. So one of the important areas that we wanna work is glutes, because they're really important in posture and in supporting the spine. If you've had surgery or an injury, you might start to curl in on yourself, and that's going to affect your posture. So one of our goals is that postural awareness, bringing that posture back. And so we want to make sure that we're properly engaging the glutes, we're properly strengthening the glutes as part of that goal. So I'm just bending at the knees, going for a nice hip hinge and engaging those glutes as I come back up. Leading with the knees, letting the bum reach back and up. I'm pressing down through my whole foot, but especially driving through that heel as I come up. One more time. We're gonna come down and stay. I've moved myself back. My bum is hitting my table here, but I want you to see my heels. We're gonna lift and lower, lift and lower. So I'm maintaining the support through my core here. And as I lift my heels, I'm really focusing on pressing down through the big toe knuckle. So I don't want to roll my ankle out to the side. Just by engaging that big toe knuckle, it's going to wake up the tissue on the inside of the leg. Let's do 2 more here. And then come up. Let's do that one more time. We're going to come down, stay. And again, I want to make sure that my knees are tracking over the center of my foot. I don't want my knee to collapse inward. So there's a lot to think about with squats. We're going to stay open. We're breathing easily through it. 2. One more time on each side. And then finding those glutes and coming up. We're just going to finish with one last exercise. I'm going to come down into my squat position, placing my weight onto my right leg. I'm going to reach my left leg back and I'm going to tap it in. Reach it out and tap it in. This is challenging the stability of my right leg. It's also challenging my glute med. So I want to make sure that that glute's nice and strong to help support my pelvis, which is going to help support my posture. And let's do this for 4. I'm going to turn around again because I'm hitting my table. And 3, 2, 1. And let's find equal weight on both legs and come up, and we'll do the other side to finish. Down, putting my weight onto that left leg, reaching the right leg back, and out I go. So a little bit of a stability challenge. That's going to challenge your core. Little bit of glute challenge. Feeling that work. Let's do 3 more. And 2. And 1. Bringing the foot down. I'm going to find nice equal weight on both feet, firing up those glutes, and up I come. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this class gives you some more exercises for you to do as you recover from your breast cancer surgeries. My goal is to get you back to doing everything that you love to do. So I hope that this class helps in achieving that goal for you. Thank you so much for joining me.